Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Today we dive into the magical world of the second Harry Potter film, The Chamber of Secrets. Although this part is considered one of the most faithful to the original book, there are still quite a few differences, some of which even die-hard fans tend to forget. Certain scenes were cut, others altered, and some moments took on an entirely new tone. Let's take a short journey through these odd and sometimes charming differences. Enjoy the video. Number 1. The Tale of the Chamber of Secrets. In the book, the legend of the Chamber of Secrets is told by Professor Binns, the dullest history of magic teacher who had no idea how important his words would become. He unexpectedly interrupts his usual lecture and shares with the students a dark and ancient story about Hogwarts and the heir of Slytherin. This moment gives the tale a feeling of timeless mystery. But in the film, Binns is nowhere to be found. Instead, Professor McGonagall takes his place, recounting the legend in a more straightforward manner during a transfiguration class. The scene remains gloomy, but it lacks the charm of the boring ghost teacher whom everyone suddenly listens to. Number 2. Filch is a squib. The book reveals a surprising detail. Caretaker Argus Filch is actually a squib. Born into a wizarding family but incapable of doing magic, this fact explains his constant bitterness, envy, and obsession with punishment. Harry finds out by accident, spotting a letter about Squibhome learning on Filch's desk. This scene is absent in the film. Filch is just portrayed as a grumpy old man, and the viewer misses the depth of his internal struggle. His squib status is only briefly hinted at in the 6th film, The Half-Blood Prince. Number 3. Denoming the Garden. In the book, Harry experiences everyday wizard life when he helps the Weasleys denome their garden. Gnomes are literally pulled out of the ground and tossed over the fence, squealing and spinning like tiny potatoes with legs. It's a light-hearted and heartwarming moment that showcases magical family routines. Sadly, the film skips this scene entirely. We never see Harry adjusting to life with the Weasleys or discovering these odd but endearing magical customs. Number 4. Penelope Clearwater. Penelope Clearwater might be an unfamiliar name to film-only viewers, but in the book, she plays a subtle yet meaningful role. She's the Ravenclaw prefect and Percy Weasley's girlfriend. Alongside Hermione, she becomes one of the Basilisk's victims. In the movie, Hermione lies petrified alone, and the mirror in her hand is her own. But in the book, she borrowed that mirror from Penelope for protection. These small details make the book richer and more layered than its on-screen counterpart. Number 5. Lucius Malfoy at the Quidditch match. During the tense Gryffindor-Slytherin match, the film shows Lucius Malfoy watching from the stands. His icy stare and cold approval of Draco add extra pressure for both boys. But in the book, Lucius doesn't appear at the match at all. His presence is a cinematic addition meant to heighten the drama, though it slightly distracts from the original narrative. Number 6. Sir Nicholas's Death Day Party. One of the quirkiest and most delightful book scenes is Sir Nicholas de Mimsy-Porpington's Death Day Party. Better known as Nearly Headless Nick, he invites Harry, Ron, and Hermione to a ghostly celebration filled with rotten food, a chilling orchestra, and games like headless hockey. The film skips this event entirely, although it adds a whimsical layer of magical absurdity and gives a glimpse into the ghostly subculture of Hogwarts. Number 7. The Journey in the Ford Anglia. Who could forget Harry and Ron's wild ride in the flying Ford Anglia? In the movie, it's pure chaos. The car nearly crashes into the train, Harry almost falls out, and they end with a dramatic crash into the Whomping Willow. But in the book, their flight is much calmer. No extreme danger, no near-deaths, just a long journey with an unfortunate landing. The action was ramped up for the film to captivate viewers, but the scene's tone shifted, from magical to almost thriller-like. Number 8. Arthur Weasley and Lucius Malfoy's fight. In flourish and blots, the tension snapped like a wand under pressure. Lucius Malfoy insulted the Weasleys again. He sneered at their poverty, their muggle-loving values, and Arthur's job at the ministry. "Bet you loved that, didn't you, Weasley, being paid to mingle with muggles?" It was too much. Arthur didn't answer with words. He lunged. Books flew. Shelves toppled. The two men wrestled across the floor like furious schoolboys in robes, fists swinging, dignity gone. Customers screamed. Gilderoy Lockhart tried to break them up, posing heroically for a camera mid-chaos. Molly Weasley scolded loudly. Draco watched with cold amusement. Harry stood frozen. It was wild, real, and hilarious. Two wizards with powerful wands, but they brawled with fists. They knocked over a display of spellbooks, and several copies of The Monster Book of Monsters bit Arthur on the arm. It was raw emotion in a world of magic, and it worked. The film chose silence instead. The scene was softened to a few cold words and a quick exit. No scuffle, no shouting, no Lockhart grandstanding in the middle of it all. But that fight showed who Arthur really was. Kind, yes, but fiercely protective. It showed Lucius too, cowardly, cruel, and smug, until pushed. In the book, it wasn't just a fight. It was a spark, the beginning of a feud that would only grow darker. Number 9. Valentine's Day at Hogwarts. Professor Lockhart never missed a chance to be ridiculous. On Valentine's Day, he went all in. The Great Hall was drowning in pink. Heart-shaped confetti rained down like cursed snow. But worst of all were the dwarves, 40 of them, dressed as cupids, armed with wings, harps, and absolutely no sense of boundaries. Lockhart called it a touching little surprise. The students called it a nightmare, especially Harry. One dwarf cornered him in a crowded corridor, tackled him to the floor, and bellowed a singing Valentine in front of half the school. His eyes are as green as a fresh pickled toad. His hair is as dark as a blackboard. Harry wanted to vanish. Malfoy laughed until he choked. Ginny, bright red, ran off. Ron nearly cried from laughing. It was chaos, embarrassing, awkward, and unforgettable. A perfect Hogwarts moment. The film left it all out. No dwarfs, no pink overload, no singing Valentines. Without it, we lose a side of Hogwarts that balances fear with absurdity. The chamber is open. Students are scared, but Lockhart is still handing out heart-shaped confetti. That contrast, the danger and the silliness, is what makes the books so alive. Without the Valentine madness, the film misses one of Rowling's sharpest jokes. Number 10, Basilisk appearance differences. When Harry faces the Basilisk in the Chamber of Secrets, the book paints a terrifying picture. It was a vast, thick-bodied serpent, emerald green, as thick as an oak trunk, with eyes as yellow as lamps. The creature gleams in the torchlight, every scale reflecting sickly green light. Its eyes blaze, and Harry knows, one direct glance, and he'll be dead. The description isn't just visual, it's symbolic. The Basilisk is beautiful and deadly, a creature of ancient magic. It belongs to legend. In the film, the Basilisk slithers out from the statue with menace, but it looks dull. Its scales are greyish-green. Its eyes, though large, lack the hypnotic glow described in the book. There's no shimmer, no unnatural gleam. It feels more like a movie monster than a mythical serpent. And while it's still frightening, the grandeur is gone. The filmmakers may have aimed for realism, but in doing so they lost the poetry of terror that Rowling created. The Basilisk isn't just a snake, it's Salazar Slytherin's legacy, the ultimate weapon of his twisted vision. In the book, its vibrant colour and glowing eyes make it feel cursed, magical. It doesn't crawl, it glides with ancient purpose. It's a ghost from a darker age, and its yellow eyes, burning like beacons, are a reminder that some horrors aren't just dangerous, they're mesmerizing. That detail is crucial. It explains why victims are frozen in place, why fear gives way to awe. In the movie, Harry still defeats it with the sword of Gryffindor. The stakes remain high, but the creature feels more grounded, more reptilian, less myth, more biology. Without the basilisk's emerald scales and golden eyes, the scene misses the chilling contrast, beauty and death, magic and nightmare. What should have looked like a dream from ancient folklore became just another monster in a shadowy cave. Number 11, Dumbledore's nightgown. When Dumbledore bursts into Professor McGonagall's office after Harry, Ron, and Ginny escape the Chamber of Secrets, he doesn't look majestic. He looks ridiculous. The book paints it clearly. Dumbledore was wearing a long, woolly dressing gown and a nightcap. The image is unforgettable. The greatest wizard of the age, standing in his pajamas, eyes blazing with pride and concern. It's a moment that blends humour with warmth, and it reminds us he's human. The film skips this entirely. When Dumbledore appears, he's in full robes, collected and solemn. There's no dressing gown, no nightcap, no moment of levity. The director chose dignity over character, but something is lost. In the book, this unexpected detail softens the scene. The kids have just survived a deadly monster. Dumbledore, looking like he came running from bed, makes it feel real, like he actually cares, like he didn't waste a second. It also reveals a side of Dumbledore that the films rarely explore, not the mysterious, all-knowing figure, but the eccentric old man who wears purple boots and enjoys sherbet lemons. His appearance in that moment is part of who he is. He shows up as he is without time to change or compose himself. And somehow that honesty makes him more powerful than any grand entrance in full wizarding attire. The book lets us laugh even after horror. It gives the characters and the readers relief. Dumbledore's pajamas say more than his wand ever could. They tell us he's real, he's kind, and that even the wisest of men sometimes rushes out in his nightclothes when the people he loves are in danger. Number 12. Ron's broken wand. Ron's wand broke clean in two when the flying car crashed into the Whomping Willow. In the book, he tries to fix it the Muggle way by wrapping it in spellotape. But magic doesn't like shortcuts. From that moment on, every spell Ron casts turns unpredictable. In class, sparks shoot sideways. During homework, books catch fire. But he refuses to give it up. He clutches the broken wand like it's still reliable, even as it betrays him daily. The worst happens during the dueling club. Lockhart pairs Ron with Draco Malfoy. Ron is furious. Malfoy just insulted Hermione, calling her a filthy little mudblood. Ron draws his wand. He doesn't hesitate. "Eat slugs!" he shouts. But instead of hitting Draco, the spell turns on him. His wand emits a loud bang, and Ron drops to the floor, choking and gagging. Slugs spill out of his mouth one by one. Fred and George drag him to Hagrid's hut, his face pale, his dignity gone. The film keeps this scene, but trims the build-up. There's no spellotape, no weeks of frustration, no slow realization that Ron is fighting a losing battle against his own wand. In the book, the faulty wand becomes a running disaster. In potions class, it explodes, burning a hole in the table. "That wand's had it," says Seamus Finnegan bluntly. But Ron clings to it anyway, too proud and too poor to ask for a new one. This broken wand is more than just a joke. It shows Ron's struggles. He's the sixth son in a hand-me-down world. He won't complain, even when magic turns against him. The book makes readers feel that tension, that mix of loyalty, frustration, and stubbornness. The film shows the laughter, but skips the heart of it. In the book, Ron's wand isn't just broken, it's a symbol of how much he's trying to hold together. Number 13, the Sorting Hat's Song. At the start of each school year, students sit nervously under the sorting hat. But in the book Chamber of Secrets, this tradition is more than just a name call. The hat sings. Not just any song, a new one every year. In 1992, it belts out a thoughtful verse explaining the values of each house and the founding of Hogwarts itself. "Oh, you may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you see," it begins. drawing laughter and whispers from first years. The hat's voice isn't just entertaining, it's wise, old, and oddly alive. This moment builds atmosphere. In just a few lines, J.K. Rowling reminds readers of the school's history, its division into 4 houses and the tension beneath it all. The hat warns of danger in disunity. Though brave and bold and wise and kind, still all their hearts beat as one. It's a quiet hint, a message about the growing darkness and the importance of standing together. But the film skips it entirely. The ceremony becomes a quick cut. No music, no story, no warning, just a talking hat saying names. Without the song, the audience misses a crucial thread. The sorting hat isn't just a tool, it's a character, a relic of the founders, full of memories and opinions. In the book, it nearly places Harry in Slytherin and doesn't forget the dilemma. In the second year, the hat even reminds Harry, "You would have done well in Slytherin." That reminder carries more weight after the song, a song that speaks of choices and values. Without it, the sorting becomes mechanical, not magical. Hogwarts feels alive in the books because its walls speak, through ghosts, portraits, and yes, enchanted hats. The sorting hat song is part of that voice. Leaving it out of the film cuts more than a melody. It cuts tradition, mood, and the quiet wisdom of an ancient school that knows its students better than they know themselves. Number 14. Tom Riddle's Living Diary. Tom Riddle's diary was more than a magical notebook. It was a trap that breathed. In the film, Harry writes on its pages and the ink disappears, only to reveal a shadowy memory, like a projection. But in the book, when Harry presses his quill to the page, something more unsettling happens. "Let me show you," the diary writes back. And in a blink, Harry is no longer in his dormitory. He's standing in a flickering, grey-toned memory. The cold of the dungeon creeps into his skin. He hears footsteps echo in the stone corridors. And there, in front of him, is young Tom Riddle, pale, calm, and already dangerous. This isn't just a memory. Harry is inside it. He watches Riddle confront Professor Dippet with eerie politeness. The headmaster calls him a remarkable boy and speaks of the school closing. Every word, every breath is soaked in tension. The atmosphere hums with unease. Riddle speaks carefully, choosing phrases that manipulate. Harry sees how charming he can be, how deceiving. "I had to see someone, sir. Someone who's been disturbed," Riddle says. His voice is silk, but Harry knows what's behind it. This is a boy hunting a monster, one he controls. The memory leads Harry to Hagrid, portrayed here as a frightened teenager, cradling a large spider. Riddle frames him for the attacks, and Harry feels the injustice crawl over him. In the film, this backstory is a brief flashback. But in the book, Harry walks each step, breathes each lie, feels the horror of watching Tom Riddle's quiet cruelty unfold. The danger isn't just the basilisk, it's the charm of a boy who never blinks when he betrays someone. The diary is alive. It pulls Harry in like prey. This isn't just a magical object, it's a piece of Tom Riddle's soul. The film hints at this, but the book shouts it in silence. The sensation of time bending, reality fading, and Riddle's presence growing stronger is unmistakable. Harry doesn't just witness history, he's dragged into it. The line between past and present dissolves. That's what makes the book's version unforgettable. Number 15, Ginny's Struggle. In the film adaptation of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Ginny Weasley appears only as a shadow of her literary self, a nervous first year with few lines and little presence until the climax. The viewer glimpses her briefly at King's Cross Station, clutching her books, red hair framing a face both shy and eager. She is introduced not as a central figure in a mysterious and dangerous plot, but as the youngest of the Weasleys, a child who blushes when she sees Harry. Nothing in these early moments hints at the tragic path she walks throughout the year, nor the burden she carries. The movie largely erases the subtle horror of her experience, and by doing so, diminishes the emotional resonance of the final confrontation beneath Hogwarts. The book, however, crafts Ginny's descent with a slow and deliberate hand. From her first appearance, J.K. Rowling sows seeds of tension. Ginny is no longer the bright-eyed girl from the burrow. She becomes withdrawn, pale, and distant. She loses weight. She avoids people. Her brothers notice but misunderstand. Percy assumes it's romantic woes. Ron shrugs it off. No one suspects the truth, that she is being manipulated by a memory, a soul preserved in ink. The reader sees these changes, feels her slipping through the cracks, and knows something terrible is happening beneath the surface. The suspense builds, and when the truth is finally revealed, it hits with devastating clarity. A particularly striking difference comes through the presence of Tom Riddle's diary. In the film, Harry finds the diary in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, but we do not see Ginny with it. Her connection to it is vague and retrospective. Only in the chamber, when Tom explains her role, do we realize how entangled she truly was. But by then, the emotional build-up is gone. In contrast, the book shows us Ginny's attachment to the diary. "Dear Tom," she writes, pouring her secrets into its pages, trusting a presence that listens when others do not. She shares her fears, her embarrassment, her hopes. She feels seen. But soon the diary begins to take more than it gives. "I think I'm losing my memory," she confesses. "There are rooster feathers on my robes and I don't know why." The horror is slow and creeping. The reader watches in helpless dread. In Rowling's text, Ginny's arc becomes a meditation on vulnerability. She is a girl caught in the whirlwind of a new school, overshadowed by famous brothers, burdened by the weight of a childhood crush. She is lonely, and the diary offers solace. It is a predator disguised as a friend. The tragedy lies in how ordinary it feels. Who wouldn't want someone to confide in, especially when one feels invisible? The movie skips this inner turmoil entirely. We never see Ginny's loneliness, her longing, or the slow erosion of her will. When she is revealed in the chamber, unconscious and cold, her story feels like an afterthought, not a climax. One of the most powerful moments in the book is when Tom Riddle explains how he used Ginny. "Ginny poured out her soul to me," he tells Harry. "I grew stronger and stronger on a diet of her deepest fears, her darkest secrets." This line is chilling, not just because of its content, but because we have seen it happening. We have read about Ginny's behavior, the way she shied away from others, her guilt, her fear. The tragedy is personal. In the film, the same line is delivered, but it rings hollow. Without the preceding narrative, it feels like exposition rather than revelation. The emotional weight is lost because the groundwork was never laid. The contrast between the two mediums is especially evident when considering Ginny's isolation. In the book, she stops talking at meals. She stares into space. She flees from Harry more than once, terrified of what she might have done to him. The writing hints that Ginny is aware, on some level, that she is responsible for something terrible. Yet she cannot stop. The diary has its claws in her. When Mrs. Norris is found petrified, when messages appear on the wall, Ginny begins to unravel. The fear becomes visible. In one scene, she is about to confess to Harry and Ron, but is interrupted by Percy, who thinks she is about to reveal his secret. The moment passes, and Ginny retreats again. This almost confession shows how desperately she wants help, and how tragically close salvation was. In the film, these opportunities are stripped away. Ginny is barely seen between the beginning and end. She is not given the room to fall apart, nor the screen time to elicit empathy. The audience is denied the chance to care. By the time she is found in the chamber, the impact is purely plot-driven. We care because Harry cares, not because we have seen Ginny suffer. This diminishes her importance and makes her feel like a pawn rather than a victim with agency and depth. Her emotional journey is erased in favor of streamlined storytelling. What's lost in the film is not just a subplot, but the humanity of a character. Ginny's ordeal in the book is a quiet tragedy. wrapped in the everyday awkwardness of childhood. Her infatuation with Harry makes her hesitant and shy. Her status as the youngest Weasley leaves her overlooked. These factors make her ripe for Riddle's manipulation. The diary becomes a mirror in which she sees herself clearly for the first time. But that mirror lies. It twists her thoughts, rewrites her feelings, and draws her into darkness. The book captures this descent with chilling realism. The film, in contrast, presents only the end result. Number 16, Dumbledore's office scene. When Argus Filch discovered his cat, Mrs. Norris, hanging stiff and petrified in the corridor, the entire castle of Hogwarts seemed to hold its breath. The chilling message on the wall, "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware," shattered the sense of safety among the students. Whispers of ancient horrors echoed through the hallways, and suspicion quickly fell upon Harry Potter. The events that followed led to a pivotal moment. Harry, Ron, and Hermione were summoned to the office of Albus Dumbledore. In the book Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, this moment unfolds with depth, atmosphere, and layers of magical detail. In contrast, the film version pares down the experience, losing many of the narrative subtleties and textures that make the book so immersive. As the trio climbed the moving spiral staircase leading to Dumbledore's office in the book, readers are swept into a chamber unlike any other at Hogwarts. The place is described as circular, filled with mysterious instruments that whir and emit soft puffs of smoke. The walls are lined with portraits of previous headmasters and headmistresses, each pretending to be asleep but clearly alert and curious. This detail, which J.K. Rowling takes care to emphasize, offers a glimpse into the legacy of Hogwarts leadership and the silent vigilance with which the school is guarded. It creates an ambiance of history, secrecy, and surveillance that lingers, even when no words are spoken. In the film, however, the grandeur of Dumbledore's office is considerably subdued. The camera captures the space with clean lines and muted lighting, but without dwelling on the arcane instruments or the magical portraits that lend the room its character. The film version seems more concerned with functional staging than with the immersive, fantastical nature of the setting. There is little visual storytelling here, no lingering shots on the devices puffing smoke, no curious glances from the painted figures. Viewers are given only a vague sense of Dumbledore's presence as a powerful and enigmatic wizard. One of the most enchanting elements of the book scene is the introduction of Fawkes the Phoenix. Rowling crafts this moment with striking symbolism and emotion. When Harry enters the office, he sees a great scarlet bird perched on a golden stand, looking sickly and with feathers falling out. Moments later, the phoenix bursts into flames before Harry's eyes, reducing itself to a pile of ashes. It's a moment of horror and confusion for Harry, who believes he has somehow caused the creature's death. But Dumbledore, calm and knowing, reassures him. "It's a shame you had to see him on a burning day," he says. This scene subtly introduces one of the book's key themes, rebirth through adversity. Fawkes is not merely a magical creature, but a metaphor for hope and transformation. The film includes Fawkes, but diminishes the impact of his first appearance. Instead of being introduced to the phoenix before his fiery rebirth, the bird is shown already burning or shortly thereafter. The subtle build-up, Harry's misinterpretation, and the explanation that follows are compressed or excluded. This results in the loss of a symbolic thread that would otherwise tie into future moments in the narrative, especially Fawkes's heroic role later in the story. The visual spectacle remains, but the emotional resonance is dulled. The book version of the office scene also underscores the growing tension in Harry's world. When Dumbledore turns his eyes on Harry, there is no accusation in them, only quiet concern. The headmaster says very little, yet the reader feels his presence like a gravitational pull. Rowling describes Dumbledore's eyes as twinkling behind his half-moon spectacles, yet with an underlying seriousness that suggests he knows more than he lets on. This nuance is vital. It paints Dumbledore not only as a mentor, but as a deeply intuitive observer who is already piecing together the puzzle long before others. In the movie, this careful balance is lost. Dumbledore's demeanor is kind, but the complexity of his inner world is not as evident. His dialogue is minimal and lacks the layered emotion of the book. The cinematic Dumbledore seems to float through the scene rather than anchor it. Without the book's internal narration and descriptive language, much of Dumbledore's silent wisdom is lost to viewers who haven't read the source material. The visual representation cannot fully convey the depth of his watchfulness. Another crucial difference lies in the emotional trajectory of Harry himself. In the book, his confusion and fear about being suspected weigh heavily on him during this office visit. He is tormented by the possibility that he may somehow be connected to the attacks, especially after hearing the strange voice in the walls. The office becomes a crucible for this anxiety, a place where he expects judgment but finds an unexpected moment of quiet. This contrast intensifies the reader's empathy for Harry and builds the tension of the larger mystery. The film does not communicate this inner turmoil with equal strength. Harry appears concerned, yes, but the absence of internal monologue leaves viewers without access to his fear of being different, of being the cause rather than the solution. The office scene in the movie functions more like a checkpoint than a turning point. It moves the plot forward but doesn't deepen the emotional stakes. This is a common sacrifice in adaptations but feels especially significant here, where psychological nuance is essential. Rowling's description of the magical objects in the office serves more than just decorative purposes. They reflect Dumbledore's identity. The silver instruments are never fully explained, but their existence hints at experimental magic, at a mind always in motion. They hiss, spin, and release vapor, behaving like magical counterparts to scientific devices. They whisper of secrets and calculations, of knowledge hidden beneath layers of charm and spell. This adds to the mystique surrounding Dumbledore, presenting him as someone who dwells on the edge of what is known and what is possible. Number 17. Meeting Aragog. In J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the meeting with Aragog is one of the most chilling and pivotal episodes of the story. The written scene unfolds in grim, shadowy layers that the film, despite its compelling visuals, only partially captures. The difference lies not only in the atmosphere but also in the depth of emotion, pacing, and psychological tension that Rowling crafts with care. As Harry and Ron make their way into the Forbidden Forest, the weight of their decision presses down like the thick clouds above them. The book tells us it is raining, an unrelenting, cold downpour that soaks their robes and muffles every crunch of leaves underfoot. The night is oppressively dark, as if the forest has swallowed all light, even the moon's pale glow. The book takes its time to describe the descent into that abyss, dragging the reader step by uneasy step alongside the boys. Every creak of a branch, every rustle in the underbrush adds to the tension. When Fang, Hagrid's cowardly boarhound, whimpers, the reader feels the echo of that fear in their own chest. Rowling does not rely on sudden jump scares or fast-paced editing. Instead, she carefully constructs a psychological landscape that puts the reader squarely in Harry's shoes. He is not just braving physical danger, he is confronting the unknown, willingly walking into a predator's den based on a cryptic clue from Hagrid and the haunting memory of a girl lying petrified in the hospital wing. The film, in contrast, strips the journey of much of its emotional gravity. The storm is gone, the darkness sanitized, the forest becomes a set, its dangers more aesthetic than genuine. The viewer watches Harry and Ron enter a spooky place, but they are not invited to feel the crushing sense of dread, the desperation of two boys acting on half-understood information, driven more by loyalty and hope than strategy. In the book, Rowling writes, "The path seemed to be getting steeper, and the trees were so thick overhead that Harry felt as though they were walking into a black tunnel." This line alone communicates the claustrophobia, the loss of orientation, and the sense of descending into something not meant for human feet. Before they meet Aragog, the book gives us a few precious minutes inside Harry's head. He is worried, not just about the spiders, but about being expelled, about failing to protect others, about letting Hermione down. Ron's fear of spiders adds a human contrast. His trembling, near paralysis at the sight of even a small one builds toward what will soon become his worst nightmare. The slow approach to Aragog's lair is almost funereal. The ground is sticky, the webbing dense, the silence too complete. It is not just a magical creature's home, it is a graveyard of old bones and secrets. When Aragog appears in the book, it is not sudden. Rowling describes his clicking mandibles, the grey of his ancient body, the whispery, almost sorrowful cadence in his voice. There is a haunting quality to Aragog in the novel that the movie fails to replicate. His age and dignity are part of the terror. He is not a beast, but a patriarch of monsters, a wise yet remorseless witness to history. "I do not see why the death of that girl should have upset me," Aragog says in the book, his words cold and indifferent. That line freezes the reader, not because it is cruel, but because it comes from a creature who speaks calmly, almost politely, about death as if it were weather. The movie version, while visually impressive, rushes through this conversation. The grandeur of Aragog's speech is trimmed and his ancient wisdom reduced to exposition. We barely get to register the alien horror of his mind before the action sequence begins. In the book, the conversation stretches out like a dark vine, curling around Harry and Ron's hope for answers. When Aragog finally reveals that the monster inside the chamber is not one of his children, and that it is something even he fears, it is a turning point. The weight of the secret is immense. Aragog, who commands legions of spiders, shudders at the memory of the true beast. The reader feels that shift, the realization that something older, darker, and more dangerous is waiting beneath the castle. The book also makes it terrifyingly clear how close Harry and Ron come to dying. Aragog does not attack them out of malice, but he does not protect them either. As he coldly tells his children to feast, the reader hears the crackling of mandibles, the skittering of thousands of legs approaching through the trees. The tension is stretched taut. There is no immediate escape. The boys are not heroes here. They are prey. Fang is barking wildly, Ron is paralyzed by terror, and Harry is grasping at any idea that might buy them time. Rowling writes they could hear the rustling as the enormous hairy bodies moved ever closer. This line lands like a heartbeat, slowing down before the end. In the film, this moment is truncated into an action set piece. The spiders swarm, the car arrives, the boys escape, but the horror is diluted by speed and noise. In the book, it is a nightmare in slow motion, a creeping inevitability. The boys' rescue by the enchanted Ford Anglia is not just surprising, it is miraculous. The car appears like a ghost out of the trees, headlights blazing, engine roaring like a mythic beast. The moment feels earned, not inserted. The book allows space for Harry and Ron's panic, for the suffocating closeness of death, and for the breathless, chaotic flight through the trees. Number 18, Harry being accused. In the quiet corridors of Hogwarts, where magic pulsed through every stone, a boy named Harry Potter found himself more alone than ever. After 2 years of being hailed as a hero, the boy who lived, the youngest seeker in a century, he was now surrounded by whispers and cold stares. In the Chamber of Secrets, the novel reveals a slow, creeping transformation in how the students of Hogwarts viewed Harry. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of mistrust that simmers over time, fueled by fear, by ignorance, and by the terrifying possibility that even a hero can become a monster. The film, though visually captivating and brisk in pace, skips over the depth of Harry's emotional isolation. It offers only glimpses, a passing remark, a startled look, but never allows the weight of suspicion to settle as heavily as it does in J.K. Rowling's text. It began with a voice only Harry could hear. "Kill, kill, time to kill." In the book, Rowling crafts a suffocating atmosphere where Harry's ability to hear the Basilisk's voice through the walls of Hogwarts becomes the seed of doubt that grows in the minds of those around him. To the reader, this detail is chilling and unforgettable, a supernatural element that adds mystery. But for the students of Hogwarts, it's something else entirely, something dangerous. When Harry inadvertently reveals that he hears voices no one else can, it changes everything. As Dumbledore says in the book, hearing voices no one else can. Here isn't a good sign even in the wizarding world. That sentence, ominous and prophetic, is never spoken in the film, and without it, much of the fear surrounding Harry's strange connection to the attacks is lost. The book does not rush, it lingers, it lets the unease build brick by brick. After Mrs. Norris is found petrified, and the bloody message appears on the wall. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. The castle's mood shifts. Harry is at the centre of attention, but not in the way he once was. The students begin to talk in hushed tones when he passes. Some look at him as though he is cursed. Others simply turn away. Rowling writes, "People were now looking at Harry as though he had grown an extra head." This is not just a boy facing rumours. This is a child being ostracised, judged and feared. The film portrays the moment with a brief montage of whispers and glances, but it never captures the way suspicion coils around Harry's daily life, the way it alters his very sense of belonging. In one of the book's most powerful examples, Justin Finch Fletchley and nearly headless Nick are found petrified. Harry, who stumbles upon the scene, becomes the prime suspect in the eyes of many. Justin had recently been seen avoiding Harry, and the attack occurs shortly after a public display of Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue. Rowling describes how a group of Hufflepuffs stormed out of herbology, staring at Harry with suspicion and fear. Even Ernie Macmillan, once polite and cheerful, begins accusing Harry outright. The transformation of Hogwarts into a place where Harry is hunted not by creatures but by judgment is a significant part of the novel. But in the movie, this sequence is truncated. Ernie's accusations are toned down. The atmosphere of paranoia never truly takes root. The fear of Harry being the heir of Slytherin is not just a student rumour in the book. It becomes an accepted theory. Even Ron and Hermione, though loyal, are shown as uncertain at times. Hermione, the logical one, is deeply disturbed by Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue, a gift associated exclusively with Salazar Slytherin and his descendants. "It matters," she says in the book. "If I hadn't known you were Muggle-born, I'd be worried too." It is a subtle sentence, but one that cuts deep. It reflects how even those closest to Harry can falter in the face of fear. The film downplays this moment, smoothing the tension between the trio. It misses the opportunity to show how trust can crack, even if it doesn't shatter. Rowling's strength lies in her psychological detail. The emotional erosion Harry undergoes during this time is not just sadness, it is confusion, helplessness, and alienation. He begins to doubt himself. He wonders if he is the heir. After all, he can speak to snakes. He was sorted into Gryffindor only after arguing with the Sorting Hat. And he seems to have a strange connection to Voldemort. In the book, these inner questions build suspense and enrich Harry's arc. He is not just solving a mystery, he is battling a crisis of identity. This complexity is absent in the film. The narrative moves forward, the plot advances, but Harry's emotional turmoil remains beneath the surface, unexplored and unspoken. One of the most symbolic moments in the book comes when Harry finds himself alone in the library, poring over books about famous Parselmouths. He reads about dark wizards and heirs of Slytherin and begins to see himself reflected in their profiles. Rowling writes, Harry couldn't help but feel a nasty chill down his spine. What if the Sorting Hat had been right? What if he should have been in Slytherin? The internal battle, the doubt, the slow unravelling of self. None of this is granted proper space in the film. Instead, the movie clings to external action and neglects the rich internal journey. There is also the matter of Hogwarts itself, a character in its own right, reacting to the suspicion and fear. In the book, the castle becomes a haunted place. Hallways fall silent when Harry enters. Classmates refuse to sit near him, teachers avoid eye contact. Peeves the poltergeist even makes up a song. "Oh, Potter, you rotter, oh, what have you done? You're killing off students, you think it's good fun." This cruel rhyme, which echoes through the corridors, is a sharp commentary on how cruelty can disguise itself as humour. The film never includes Peeves, and so this entire layer, magical bullying of emotional brutality, is erased. Harry's isolation reaches a peak after the dueling club scene. In the book, his use of Parseltongue to stop the snake from attacking Justin is witnessed by dozens of students, but instead of admiration, he is met with horror. Rowling writes, "The moment the word Parseltongue left Snape's lips, the room seemed to go very cold. The fear is immediate, tangible. The film includes this scene, but again, its weight is diminished. The camera cuts away too quickly. The reactions are muted. The audience is told what happened, but they don't feel what Harry feels. And that, more than anything, is the problem. Even Professor McGonagall, though never openly suspicious, becomes more distant in the book. There's a moment when she watches Harry too carefully, as if trying to piece together something. In a school where secrets are dangerous and heritage can kill, no one is above doubt. The faculty walks a tightrope between protection and distrust, and Harry, young and confused, walks it alone. This emotional complexity is lost in the film, where the professors mostly remain passive observers. The book's emotional climax is not the discovery of the chamber or the defeat of the Basilisk. It is the slow realization that being different can be dangerous. Harry does not want to be feared. He does not want to be special if it means being hated. This lesson is slowly and painfully etched into him during the school year. He doesn't just uncover a secret, he survives a slow, burning social execution. That psychological damage, subtle but deep, lingers well beyond the final chapter. The film ends on triumph and celebration, but the novel leaves a scar. What the adaptation misses is not the action but the silence, the long, awkward silences that fall between Harry and his classmates. The moments where people step away from him in the corridors. The times when even Hagrid, the most loyal friend, offers reassurance that feels like pity. These silences are heavy in the book. They speak volumes. In the film, they are replaced by brief conversations and musical cues, none of which leave a lasting impact. This difference matters because it changes how we see Harry. In the book, he is not just brave, he is resilient. He endures something that no child should face, being feared by those he calls friends. His strength is not just in facing the Basilisk, but in walking through weeks of whispers and doubt without losing himself. The movie, in trying to entertain, forgets to show the cost of being different. It is easy to remember the grand moments, the flying car, the diary, the final battle in the chamber. But the heart of the Chamber of Secrets lies in its quietest horror, being 12 years old, lost in a castle of suspicion, and slowly realizing that heroism does not shield you from judgment. In the book, Harry is not just fighting a monster. He is fighting to hold on to his identity, his friendships, and his place in a world that suddenly sees him as a threat. That's a battle far more frightening than any basilisk, and it's a battle the film forgets to show. Number 19, hiding in the vanishing cabinet. When Harry Potter stumbled into the dusty confines of Borgin and Burke's, the moment was more than a mere detour, it was a foreshadowing wrapped in mystery. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, J.K. Rowling painted the scene with deliberate unease. Harry, disoriented after mispronouncing Diagon Alley while using flu powder, crashes into a world cloaked in shadows, far removed from the cheerful chaos of the Weasleys' arrival. The shop he lands in is packed with sinister artifacts, cursed opals, hand of glory, and skulls coated in dust. But the most important relic in the room sits quietly in the background, forgotten even by the filmmakers, a vanishing cabinet. The book doesn't scream its presence, but rather whispers it to attentive readers. When Harry hears footsteps and recognizes the sharp voice of Lucius Malfoy, he acts instinctively. He hides inside the vanishing cabinet, pressing himself against its sides, hoping not to be discovered. Rowling describes the moment simply but effectively. He leapt into a large black cabinet and pulled the doors closed, leaving a small crack to peer through. The tension is thick, amplified by the knowledge that Harry is eavesdropping on one of the series' most manipulative characters. Lucius, in the middle of trying to offload dark objects before a ministry raid. The cabinet isn't enchanted in any flashy or dramatic way during this early appearance. It does not shimmer or rattle or transport Harry elsewhere. To him, it's just a hiding spot, one of convenience, surrounded by danger, and yet it's this very piece of furniture that becomes a major plot device in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, used by Draco Malfoy to smuggle Death Eaters into Hogwarts. Its quiet introduction in Chamber of Secrets is a masterstroke of Rowling's long game, laying down pieces that only later fall into place. In the novel, this moment is a subtle breadcrumb on the trail to understanding the deeper architecture of her magical world. However, when translated into film, this breadcrumb vanishes. The scene at Borgin & Burke's is drastically shortened, its atmosphere diluted. The dark shop exists briefly almost as an interlude. There's no proper tension, no creeping sense of dread. The encounter with Lucius still happens, but Harry isn't given the same desperate moment of concealment. The vanishing cabinet, the very object that once shielded him, is reduced to a background prop, if shown at all. The filmmakers, perhaps with limited runtime or pacing concerns, chose to forego this moment of quiet importance. This omission is more than just a missing scene, it's the loss of a carefully woven thread. The Vanishing Cabinet's first appearance is an example of Rowling's signature technique, the casual placement of a magical item that seems inconsequential, only to reveal its devastating relevance later. Without this moment, the film viewers are denied the satisfaction of remembering that the cabinet was introduced 4 books prior. Instead, its sudden reappearance in the 6th film lacks the weight of history and recognition that the book version delivers effortlessly. It is particularly poignant because the Vanishing Cabinet, in its eventual role, becomes the very doorway through which tragedy enters Hogwarts. In Half-Blood Prince, Draco's months-long efforts to repair the broken cabinet in the Room of Requirement is one of the novel's most compelling subplots. The cabinet, paired with its twin in Borgin and Burke's, forms a tunnel between safety and chaos. The magical object that once offered Harry refuge becomes, in an ironic twist, the very means by which Death Eaters breached the school's defences. It's this poetic reversal that the film sacrifices by neglecting the cabinet's origin story. When Harry hides in that cabinet, he becomes a silent witness to the machinations of the Malfoys. Lucius, with his cold voice and aristocratic disdain, discusses selling dangerous objects to Mr. Borgin, including a cursed opal necklace that later reappears when Katie Bell is tragically hexed. This necklace, too, is part of the larger tapestry, another quiet echo that resounds later. Rowling plants multiple seeds in that one chapter. It's not just world-building, it's future-building. The shop, the cabinet, the cursed objects, they all return, transformed by context and consequence. In the film adaptation, the decision to trim this entire arc reduces the complexity of both space and symbolism. Borgin and Burke's is more than a dark alley curiosity. It's a manifestation of the underworld of wizardry, a shadow economy of cruelty and secrecy. Stripping it of narrative depth lessens the Malfoys' entanglement in that world and dulls the reader's growing suspicion of their intentions. More importantly, it severs the emotional thread between the 2nd and 6th stories. Without the cabinet's first appearance, Draco's plan loses its eerie sense of predestination. There's something narratively delicious in the idea that a magical object introduced as a hiding place becomes a weapon. The Vanishing Cabinet has a dual personality. It protects and it betrays. In the second book, it shields Harry from Lucius Malfoy. In the sixth, it allows Lucius's allies to endanger Harry's entire world. This symbolic transformation is subtle but rich, and it echoes one of the series' most potent themes, that magic, like power, is neutral until wielded. The object doesn't choose sides, people do. One might argue that such intricacies are difficult to preserve on screen. Films rely on visual shorthand, and a plain wooden cabinet hardly announces itself as a plot device. But Rowling's narrative doesn't ask the reader to recognize its importance immediately. Instead, it invites rereading, reinterpreting. When a reader reaches Half-Blood Prince and remembers that odd little moment in Chamber of Secrets, it creates a thrill of realization. The dots connect and the world feels suddenly deeper, more alive. That thrill is a casualty of cinematic compression. Even the cabinet's intermediate history between books 2 and 6 adds to its mythos. In Order of the Phoenix, Fred and George shove Montague into it, where he's trapped for days between two worlds. His experience, half forgotten and barely comprehensible, adds a note of dread to the cabinet's capabilities. Again, this adds weight to Draco's eventual plan. The cabinet is not just a hole in space, it's an artifact of suffering, of strange liminality. That backstory depends in part on remembering its very first appearance, on realizing it was there all along. The absence of the hiding scene in the film also robs Harry of a moment of vulnerability. In the book, he's frightened, alone, unsure of where he is. He chooses the cabinet because he has no other option. This vulnerability humanizes him and grounds the magic in real fear. It's an experience any child could relate to, getting lost, hiding from danger, eavesdropping on adults. These universal emotions give the magical world resonance. In the film, Harry simply stumbles out of the shop, largely unscathed and unbothered. The peril evaporates. The original moment also helps build tension for the reader. Harry isn't just hiding from Lucius, he's also observing, learning. His world is expanding, not just geographically, but morally. He sees what adults like the Malfoys do when they believe they're unobserved. He understands that dark objects have market value, that respectability can be a mask. This realization helps shape his later distrust of authority and his moral independence. The cabinet is the literal frame through which he views this awakening. There is a kind of narrative elegance in Rowling's use of space. A room is never just a room, a cabinet is never just furniture. Her Hogwarts is layered with these hidden doors and half-buried secrets. The Vanishing Cabinet is a totem of that philosophy, an ordinary object that holds extraordinary meaning. In omitting this from the film, the adaptation flattens the dimensionality of the world. It becomes more spectacle, less architecture, more moment, less memory. The simplification of this scene reflects a broader tension between the books and films. Rowling's novels invite patience, offering rewards to readers who pay attention. The films, shaped by time constraints and visual urgency, often favor immediacy over foreshadowing. In this case, the choice is particularly costly. The removal of the Vanishing Cabinet's introduction severs a vital connective thread and leaves the viewers poorer for it. They lose not only a scene of suspense, but a link in the chain of story logic. For readers, though, the cabinet still stands quietly in that dark shop, waiting, not just as a place to hide, but as a signal of future danger, of narrative foresight, of the way stories can loop back on themselves and whisper, "Remember me." The magic of Rowling's world lies not only in its spells, but in its structure. The Vanishing Cabinet is proof that even the quietest corner may one day open into storm. Number 20. The Inkless Diary. When Harry stumbled upon the battered black diary in Moaning Myrtle's flooded bathroom, he didn't know he was holding the sole fragment of a teenage Voldemort. It looked unremarkable, tattered, blank and old. Yet within its emptiness lay a creeping danger, one that only slowly unveiled itself in the book. In J.K. Rowling's novel Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the diary is a mystery that unfolds gradually, its malevolent essence cloaked in the banality of empty pages. The film adaptation, however, strips this moment of its psychological build-up, skipping straight to the revelation of the diary's sentience, thereby losing the eerie tension that Rowling so carefully constructed. In the book, when Harry first opens the diary, he sees no writing, just blank pages. There are no names, no notes, not even the faintest sign of use. It doesn't respond to him immediately. This silence is what makes the moment so powerful. The diary appears as a void, and that void speaks volumes. It teases the imagination and raises a question: why has someone preserved a book devoid of content? Rowling draws out the suspense masterfully. She lets Harry observe the blankness, then try something simple, writing in it. Only after several attempts, as he notes with increasing curiosity, does he realize the ink disappears into the page as though swallowed whole. This vanishing ink moment is haunting. It happens slowly, not with a jolt or a flash, but with eerie subtlety. As Rowling writes, ink spilled across one page, and Harry stared in astonishment as it vanished, leaving the page as blank as before. There is something deeply wrong about a book that erases one's words so completely, like it's eating them. Harry, a boy familiar with magical objects, still finds this peculiar. He doesn't know yet that the diary is sentient. All he sees is an item behaving unnaturally, and that tiny horror is what makes it feel real. It doesn't scream, it whispers. The diary in the book becomes a mystery Harry feels compelled to solve. He experiments like a curious scientist. He writes again, watches, waits. The ink disappears again. Then he asks it a question. That's when the diary finally responds. Words blooming onto the page, like an invisible hand is writing back. "Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle." The subtle pacing of this revelation is crucial. Rowling doesn't rush it. She allows the diary to develop a voice only after Harry's repeated attempts. It makes the diary feel like a predator waiting in silence, luring Harry in with every vanished word. In contrast, the film adaptation tosses aside this psychological unease. When Harry first writes in the diary in the movie, it immediately answers. There is no experimentation, no tension, no blank stares at disappearing ink. The diary leaps to life without hesitation. It's cinematic, yes, but it sacrifices the slow, creeping realization that Rowling crafted. By having the diary reply straight away, the film reduces the emotional impact of discovering that the object is alive, the sense of dread that comes from uncertainty, the build-up of questions, the thrill of the unknown. All of it is compressed into a single instant of magical response. This shortcut in the film changes how the viewer experiences the diary. It becomes more of a plot device than a character. In the book, the diary feels like a thinking, waiting, watching entity. It has patience, manipulates with care. Riddle's persona is not just a ghost trapped in pages. He's a snake in tall grass, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. By skipping the initial experimentation phase, the movie denies viewers the chance to feel like they are uncovering something sinister alongside Harry. The magic becomes functional, not emotional. In Rowling's novel, Harry's gradual discovery of the diary's secrets mirrors a descent into darkness. Each question he writes draws him deeper into Riddle's carefully spun tale. The pages respond with calm precision, always giving just enough to provoke more questions. Riddle plays the long game, feeding Harry information that is designed to turn him against Hagrid. The diary doesn't just reveal facts, it tells a story, and it does so with a manipulative rhythm. The initial silence of the diary makes its eventual voice more powerful. It speaks only when it chooses to. That's what makes it terrifying. The lack of this pacing in the film weakens Riddle's deception. In the book, Riddle earns Harry's trust slowly, through an unfolding conversation. Harry even thinks the diary might be helping him. He doesn't suspect manipulation because the object has already shown restraint. That restraint is part of its seduction. The diary doesn't push, it entices. In the film, the immediacy of the diary's response makes Riddle's manipulation feel mechanical. The viewer isn't given the same opportunity to fall under the diary's spell because the diary never pretends to be anything but magical. Rowling uses this scene in the book to highlight how subtle evil can be. The diary isn't just dangerous because it can speak, it's dangerous because it knows how to wait, it knows how to seem harmless. The disappearing ink becomes a symbol of this deception. What you write fades as if it never existed. What's taken from you is absorbed, not mirrored. The diary doesn't just respond, it consumes. This metaphor is completely absent from the film. Without the ink vanishing scene, the diary loses its air of eerie intelligence and becomes just another magical tool. The inkless pages in the book evoke the silence before the storm. They give the diary a personality before it even speaks. It's the difference between a door creaking open on its own and a door flying open in a gust of wind. One builds suspense, the other startles. The film chooses the gust of wind. Rowling chose the creak. This difference is subtle but crucial. In horror, and the diary is, at its core, a horror element, timing is everything. Rowling understands this. The film, constrained by time and format, rushes it. Moreover, the book allows Harry to feel wonder and confusion, not just fear. He engages with the diary like a puzzle, not an enemy. There is a short-lived belief that the diary might be benevolent. This belief makes the betrayal more devastating later on. In the film, this illusion barely exists. The diary is creepy from the outset, and that's all. There is no transition, no trust to shatter. It's a loss of complexity, and with it, a loss of emotional weight. When Riddle shows Harry the memory of Hagrid being blamed for the chamber's opening, it carries more weight in the book precisely because Harry feels that the diary has earned his trust. The emotional betrayal hits harder. Riddle didn't just show Harry a memory, he fed him a lie that aligned with Harry's growing doubts. That seed of mistrust is planted early when the diary first seems helpful. In the film, the betrayal is more functional. The diary shows the memory, Harry reacts. The psychological manipulation is flattened into an action sequence. Rowling's use of the disappearing ink also serves a symbolic purpose. Harry writes and his words vanish. In a story that's deeply concerned with memory and identity, this motif of vanishing text mirrors the themes at play. The diary is rewriting memory, rewriting truth. The vanishing ink foreshadows the false memory it will later present. It's a layer of storytelling that speaks through metaphor, one that the film does not preserve. Even Ginny's interactions with the diary are affected by this change. In the book, her fear grows gradually, hinted through her behavior and the diary's quiet influence. The fact that the diary doesn't speak openly from the start makes its power more insidious. It lures, it doesn't command. The ink vanishing isn't just for Harry's benefit, it's part of the diary's entire approach. The book emphasizes that the diary's corruption is slow, creeping, like poison in water. The film, by contrast, turns the diary into a switch, either on or off. This difference reflects a broader contrast between the two mediums. Films often prioritize visual immediacy. They need the magic to look magical. But books, especially Rowling's, dwell in internal mystery. The thrill of the diary in the book is not just that it answers, it's that it waits, that it listens, that it chooses when to speak, and when it does, you realize it has been paying attention all along. That's not something you can convey in a single instant. It's something you build inkless page by inkless page. Number 21, Snape's suspicion. In J.K. Rowling's book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the potions classroom is more than a dungeon filled with cauldrons and bubbling brews. It is a crucible of suspicion, mistrust, and subtle power struggles, especially between Professor Snape and Harry Potter. Unlike the cinematic adaptation, which simplifies the potions master into a lurking presence, the book utilizes the shadowy confines of Snape's domain to expose tension, rivalry, and growing peril. Here, the potions classroom is a stage for psychological warfare, where Snape's animosity toward Harry isn't just hinted, it's dangerously close to becoming an obsession. One particular scene, where Snape eavesdrops and begins forming a theory of Harry's guilt, encapsulates how the book's version of this space is infused with intrigue and layered narrative depth. The classroom itself is oppressive, carved into the cold, stone underbelly of Hogwarts. The smell of burning roots and acidic fumes lingers in the air, the dim light casting flickering shadows that exaggerate every movement. Snape is not merely a teacher in this setting, he is a predator in his element. Fame clearly isn't everything, he snarls at Harry in the book, reminding the reader that his disdain is not just about school rules, but about something personal, deeper. The film presents this scene with a fleeting smirk or narrowed eyes, but it fails to dwell in the thick, invisible fog of mutual distrust that Rowling so carefully crafts between Harry and his teacher. In the book, Snape's suspicion of Harry begins to intensify after the first attack on a student. While Dumbledore and McGonagall remain measured in their concern, Snape acts as though he has already rendered his verdict. He hovers closer in potions lessons, interrupts more often, and casts cold, questioning glances toward Harry when others aren't looking. Rowling describes a moment when Snape lingers by Harry's table longer than usual, his eyes boring into Harry's as if trying to read his thoughts. The implication is clear: Snape suspects Harry knows more than he lets on. In contrast, the film never allows this thread to fully develop. The camera glances at Snape as it would a background character, occasionally reminding the audience of his existence, but never letting him move beyond the edges of the frame. A key moment in the book occurs when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are discussing the possibility that Draco Malfoy is the heir of Slytherin. They speak in whispers, thinking themselves alone after a potions lesson. But Snape is not far. Rowling writes, "There was a soft hiss behind them. Snape had entered the room silently, his eyes flicking between the trio, and the edge of a sneer on his lips." This detail, absent from the film, reveals the depth of Snape's paranoia and his talent for appearing precisely when he is least wanted. It is not simply a coincidence. Snape is watching. He is trying to catch Harry doing something wrong, to prove, once and for all, that the boy is not the Bane everyone believes him to be. What's more compelling is that Rowling doesn't depict Snape as entirely wrong in his suspicions. Harry is hiding something. He is hearing voices in the walls, sneaking around the castle, and even brewing illegal polyjuice potion in the girls' bathroom. Snape's instincts, though driven by dislike, are not baseless, but in the film this grey morality is flattened into black and white. Snape becomes just another obstacle. The rich ambiguity of his role is sacrificed for cinematic pacing. He is never shown eavesdropping, never caught mid-glare, never stepping just close enough to be menacing without drawing attention. The viewer is left with a caricature, not a character. Another brilliant scene in the book unfolds when Justin Finch Fletchley is attacked. Dumbledore gathers the staff and Snape wastes no time voicing his suspicions. Rowling writes, "Perhaps Potter was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time," Snape said, his black eyes glittering. But we must not rule out the possibility that he is involved. These are not the words of a cautious man, they are those of a hunter closing in. The film, curiously, omits this exchange entirely. We do not see Snape confront Dumbledore or question Harry in front of his peers. This crucial omission deprives viewers of the growing menace that Snape brings to the unfolding mystery. Snape's dynamic with Harry in the book resembles a chess game played in low light. Every glance, every pause, every word in class is layered with meaning. Snape assigns difficult ingredients to Harry, critiques his brewing with more venom than necessary, and seems to hope that one day Harry will slip. There's a moment when Harry accidentally melts his cauldron, and Snape's fury is out of proportion. "I suppose you added the porcupine quills before taking the cauldron off the fire," he hisses. "Take 20 points from Gryffindor." The point here is not discipline, it is domination. In the film, these tensions are hinted at but never fully realized. Snape is there, yes, but he isn't hunting. He isn't actively threatening. He is reduced to the occasional scowl. More importantly, Snape's interest in the Chamber of Secrets itself is almost completely erased from the movie. In the book, he voices concern over the school's safety, especially as students continue to be petrified. He discusses the legend with McGonagall and Dumbledore, weighing the facts. There is a genuine, if grudging, commitment to protecting Hogwarts, even if it means confronting the notion that one of their own may be involved. This commitment, paired with his loathing of Harry, creates a fascinating moral conflict. But in the film, Snape is largely silent. He does not participate in the larger investigation. He does not ask questions. He fades into the background. Perhaps the greatest loss in the film's portrayal of the potions classroom is its atmosphere of quiet dread. Rowling paints it as a pressure cooker where every misstep could bring punishment, where alliances shift, and where Snape's authority is absolute. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione prepare to steal ingredients for the Polyjuice potion, it is Snape's office they fear. Rowling heightens the tension. Snape's private stores were secured behind a cabinet enchanted with a complex locking charm. Breaking into it would be dangerous, possibly fatal. This sense of danger, so vividly present in the book, becomes a mere plot checkpoint in the film. The risk is dulled, the stakes minimized. Even Hermione, normally composed and precise, shows anxiety around Snape in the book's potions lessons. She speaks less, avoids eye contact, and whispers warnings to Harry and Ron under her breath. The trio understands that Snape is not just a teacher, he is an enemy whose power in this domain is unchecked. This deepened characterization is vital to the sense of urgency in the second book. The potions classroom is not just a place of learning, it is a battlefield. The film forgets this entirely. Snape's presence also adds a layer of unpredictability. When Harry speaks Parseltongue during the dueling club, suspicion skyrockets. Snape steps forward, his eyes narrowed. Rowling writes, "Snape looked as though Christmas had been cancelled." This biting irony masks his excitement. Harry has just provided more fuel for Snape's theory, but the film glosses over Snape's reaction, giving it to the broader crowd instead. The viewer sees confusion but not targeted suspicion. The story loses its focus. In the book, when Harry visits the hospital wing after being injured during Quidditch, Snape appears briefly not to offer sympathy but to press Madame Pomfrey for information. He inquires subtly, trying to confirm Harry's movements. Rowling is careful to show that Snape never forgets. He is always gathering data, interpreting clues, looking for cracks in Harry's armor. In the film, this subplot vanishes, and with it, the sense that Snape might, at any moment, corner Harry with dangerous accusations. Snape's nuanced involvement in the book also hints at his own past. As a Slytherin and a master of the dark arts, he understands the threat of the chamber better than most. He knows what lies in the heart of cunning boys like Draco and the seductive power of secrets. Though he never admits it, his vigilance may be fueled by fear that something from his own childhood has returned. This subtle, emotional undercurrent adds depth to his character. The film, constrained by time or perhaps by vision, never explores it. The absence of Snape's active participation in the investigation of the chamber in the movie leaves a gap in the narrative. It removes a source of tension and urgency. The potions classroom loses its sinister allure. The power dynamic between Harry and Snape is flattened, their rivalry reduced to polite animosity. The result is a story less complex, less layered, and far less thrilling. In Rowling's hands, the potions classroom is a political theatre. Snape is both warden and detective, judge and executioner. His interest in Harry is not just personal, It is a piece in a larger puzzle that includes school legend, student safety, and unspoken memories. The film gives us Snape the shadow, but the book gives us Snape the storm. And in doing so, it reminds us that sometimes the most dangerous room at Hogwarts isn't the Chamber of Secrets. It's the one filled with cauldrons and silence. Number 22, Justin and Nearly Headless, Nick Petrified. In the cold, echoing corridors of Hogwarts, the moment when Harry stumbles upon the petrified bodies of Justin Finch Fletchley and Nearly Headless Nick marks one of the most chilling turning points in the Chamber of Secrets. The book lingers here, allowing the weight of fear and suspicion to settle not only upon the characters, but also upon the reader. This moment is soaked in unease, carefully constructed through atmosphere and emotion. Yet in the film, this pivotal event is brushed past so quickly that its significance nearly dissolves. The discovery, which should have been heavy with dread and consequence, instead becomes a fleeting detail in the rush of visual storytelling. In the book, J.K. Rowling masterfully draws the reader into Harry's growing isolation and internal terror. After hearing the chilling voice in the walls for a second time, Harry wanders the halls alone, disturbed and confused. He turns a corner and stops dead. The sight awaiting him is haunting. Justin Finch Fletchley is sprawled on the floor, eyes frozen wide in fear, completely petrified. Beside him, an even stranger sight, Nearly Headless Nick, suspended in midair, silvery and stiff, like a statue of smoke. Rowling does not rush this scene. She lets Harry's horror breathe. It was Justin Finch Fletchley. He was lying on the floor, rigid and cold, a look of shock frozen on his face. The chill of the moment wraps itself around the reader. You can almost feel the cold stone floor beneath Harry's feet. This isn't just a moment of fear, it is a moment of accusation. In the book, Ernie Macmillan and a group of Hufflepuffs arrive almost immediately. They catch Harry standing over the scene, wand in hand, his face pale and stunned. The implications are instant and brutal. Caught in the act, Ernie mutters, confirming what everyone is thinking. It's not simply that Harry has witnessed something terrible, it's that everyone now thinks he caused it. The reader is plunged into Harry's shoes, feeling the sting of injustice, the confusion, the shock of being feared and doubted. The emotional weight of this moment is immense. This is not an ordinary confrontation. It's the beginning of Harry being shunned, whispered about, and even avoided in hallways. Students who once admired him now cast suspicious glances. This shift does not happen in a vacuum. Rowling uses this scene to show how easily fear can turn allies into accusers. The book takes its time to let this transformation unfold. The trust in Harry begins to erode visibly, and we are forced to sit with him in the silence that follows. There is no denial scene or attempt to defend himself. Harry is too stunned for that. It is the beginning of a long, silent fall into solitude. Contrast this with the film adaptation, and you are met with disappointment. The scene is barely there. Justin's body is shown in passing. Nick, stiff in the background, and then we move on. There is no dramatic pause, no framing of Harry as the solitary figure caught at the scene. There is no Hufflepuff outrage, no Ernie Macmillan bristling with righteous anger. The camera shows us a mystery, not an accusation. The psychological torment Harry endures is lost, replaced by a sterile visual moment that lacks depth or emotional resonance. What makes the book so gripping is that it does not let Harry off the hook emotionally. He is forced to endure suspicion without any way to prove his innocence. Dumbledore's calm but probing questions make him uneasy. Even Ron and Hermione, though supportive, are helpless to stop the rumors spreading like wildfire. The scene with Justin and Nick is the spark. And in the book, that spark is vividly detailed. Harry notices the water on the floor, the trace of a spider's thread disappearing out the window, the fear creeping into his bones. All these details vanish in the film. Nearly Headless Nick's fate in the book adds a surreal, disturbing layer to the event. Ghosts, as we are told, are not living and thus should not be susceptible to the same magical effects as humans. And yet here he is, petrified. It raises an eerie question: what kind of magic could do this? It adds a sense of otherworldly danger, suggesting the force behind these attacks is not only ancient, but also powerful beyond comprehension. This detail is completely flattened in the movie. Nick is there, sure, but the implications of his state are never explored. It becomes a visual oddity instead of a narrative clue. In Rowling's writing, these details are not mere decoration. They are scaffolding for the mystery and the fear that permeates the entire second book. The discovery of the bodies is followed by a detention for Harry and Ron, scrubbing trophy cases in the dead of night. It is in this solitude that Harry hears the voice again, whispers of murder and bloodlust. He realizes that whatever is stalking the halls of Hogwarts isn't finished yet. In the book, the timing of these voices and the attacks is deliberate and alarming. Harry feels hunted not just by the creature but by the suspicion of his peers. By skipping past this depth in the film, the emotional stakes are reduced. Harry's experience becomes passive, his suffering less visceral. The complexity of being feared for something he did not do, something he cannot explain, is crucial to his development. This tension is what makes the Chamber of Secrets so much darker than its predecessor. It's not just about a monster, it's about the monster of fear, of alienation, and how easily a boy can become a suspect when he is different. That difference, marked by Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue, becomes a brand. "He's a Parselmouth," whispers spread like poison. The book lets that suspicion bloom. The film, again, races ahead. What also vanishes in the cinematic version is the growing tension between the houses. The Hufflepuffs, once friendly and kind, now look at Harry with mistrust. The book paints these interactions with subtlety. Averted eyes in the Great Hall. Whispered conversations that cease when he enters a room. Harry begins to question himself. Could the voice he hears be something darker within him? Could he really be the heir of Slytherin? The reader is pulled into his self-doubt, but in the film this internal conflict is barely touched. The suspicion feels surface level, the reactions from other students mere background noise. Justin Finch Fletchley is not just a random victim. Rowling sets him up with care. Earlier in the book, Justin is friendly to Harry, even excited to meet him. He comes from a Muggle family, which makes his attack more alarming. It fits the pattern. That's what makes the accusation so painful. Justin had trusted Harry. Now he lies frozen, and everyone believes Harry turned on him. The betrayal of expectation is sharp. In the film, Justin is barely a presence before his petrification, making the attack feel arbitrary and emotionally hollow. The psychological burden on Harry escalates after this moment. Peeves spreads the word gleefully, chanting, "Potter, you rotter," through the halls. Fred and George even joke about Harry being a dark wizard, light-hearted teasing that only deepens Harry's sense of being alone. These reactions form a web of unease around him. It's not just about one incident. It's about a boy being slowly pushed out of the world he once thought was home. That kind of emotional unraveling is difficult to capture on screen, but the film hardly tries. In the book, Dumbledore's concern is gentle but pointed. He sees the pattern. He suspects the truth. And yet, he lets Harry struggle with it. "You can speak Parseltongue, Harry," Dumbledore says quietly, and Harry feels the weight of his difference again. The reader senses that even the wisest wizard alive is unsure of what's happening. The uncertainty adds to the dread. In the film, the emotional beats of this conversation are dulled, shortened, leaving only the factual residue of the exchange. Rowling's portrayal of these events is about more than just suspense. It is about fear as a social force, how quickly people turn, how fast doubt spreads. It's about the horror of being seen as dangerous when you feel powerless. Harry isn't just afraid of the creature in the walls, he's afraid of what everyone else now believes about him. That fear isolates him, pushing him inward, forcing him to question everything. The film shows a boy in danger. The book shows a boy unraveling under pressure. That's the difference. This moment, finding Justin and Nick petrified, is not a footnote. It is the fulcrum of the book's tension. It shifts the story from mystery into paranoia, from school adventure into emotional thriller. In choosing to skim past this moment, the film loses something vital: the human cost of fear, the slow erosion of trust, and the helplessness of being branded a villain when you're still just a boy. That's what the book gives us. That's what the film forgets. Number 23. Dumbledore's Reward. When the dust settled and Ginny Weasley was safe, when the Basilisk lay dead and Tom Riddle's diary had been pierced through the heart, Harry and Ron returned to the world above with a sense of triumph shadowed by exhaustion. In the book Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, J.K. Rowling gave this moment its proper weight. It was not just a return from darkness, but a rite of passage, a reward for bravery, and a moment of recognition. Dumbledore, with his usual blend of wisdom and subtle theatricality, greeted them not with celebration, but with gratitude. He made it clear that he had been watching, understanding, and waiting for this day. But when the story was adapted to film, this vital recognition vanished in favor of a cheerful feast. What was a moment of mentorship in the book became in the film a mere celebration, empty of personal connection. In the novel, when Harry and Ron emerge from the chamber, bruised and dirty but victorious, Dumbledore receives them in his office with his characteristic calm. There is no crowd, no roaring applause. Instead, there is a quiet moment of reckoning. Rowling describes how Dumbledore's eyes twinkle behind his half-moon spectacles as he listens to their tale, never once expressing anger for their actions, though they had broken school rules and risked their lives. "You must have shown me real loyalty down in the chamber," he tells Harry. "Nothing but that could have called Fawkes to you." This line encapsulates everything that Dumbledore sees in Harry. It's not just bravery, but heart, a rare loyalty that brings magic more powerful than spells. In the film, this line is reduced to a fragment, tucked into the broader sequence of jokes and laughter. The emotional depth is lost. After this acknowledgement in the book, Dumbledore does not forget Ron's role. The moment becomes a chance to teach, to thank, and to uplift. He awards both boys 200 points each, a rare and generous reward. He also gives them special awards for services to the school, the very same kind that Tom Riddle once received for capturing Hagrid. This parallel is not accidental. Rowling places Harry and Ron in direct contrast with Riddle. Where Riddle used lies to gain glory, these boys risked everything to protect another. Dumbledore's reward is not just ceremonial, it is a symbolic undoing of the past's injustice. The film skips all of this. The boys return, and soon the great hall is filled with food and joy. There is no private meeting, no meditative moment, no time for reflection. Dumbledore's choice to reward them in the book does more than boost Gryffindor's chances in the House Cup. It serves as an emotional culmination. Ginny is safe, but she carries trauma. The school is open again, but fear still lingers in the walls. By recognizing Harry and Ron in such a profound way, Dumbledore offers the school and the reader closure. He turns the page from horror to healing. He reminds everyone that good deeds do not go unnoticed, and that courage is not measured by applause but by action in the face of paralyzing fear. The absence of this message in the film undercuts one of the book's most important themes, the power of recognition. Moreover, in the novel, Dumbledore's office becomes a sacred space, a moment of pause between crisis and return to normalcy. It is there that truths are spoken, mysteries resolved, and healing begins. Rowling describes how Harry watches Dumbledore carefully, noting how the old man listens more than he speaks. When he does speak, every word matters. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. This iconic line survives in the film, but it floats in a sea of lost meaning because the broader context has been cut. The moment of awarding points and honouring the boys is essential to the emotional rhythm of this scene. Without it, the speech becomes philosophical but disconnected. In the movie, the climax pivots far too quickly from danger to delight. We are suddenly thrust into a bright, noisy feast with Gryffindor banners fluttering and students laughing. Hagrid returns to cheers and Harry receives a wink from Dumbledore, as if everything that happened can be summed up in a smile and a pudding. It is pleasant, perhaps even comforting, but it robs the story of its full impact. The boys do not receive formal acknowledgement. There are no special awards. The link to the past, to Riddle, to Hagrid's framing, is barely touched upon. The opportunity for reflection is sacrificed for spectacle. This is more than a storytelling preference. It shifts the tone and meaning of the entire resolution. In the book, Dumbledore's recognition serves as an anchor. It grounds the narrative and gives purpose to the chaos. It reminds the reader that Hogwarts, for all its magic and mystery, is still a school, a place where deeds matter, where learning happens not only in classrooms, but in choices made under pressure. The film, by contrast, ends more like a fairy tale. Evil is vanquished, joy returns, and everyone eats. But the nuance is lost. By omitting the special awards and the explicit acknowledgement of Harry and Ron's heroism, the film also undercuts one of Dumbledore's most consistent traits, his deep commitment to justice, both moral and symbolic. Throughout the books, he takes the time to reward those who act with bravery and compassion, even if they break the rules. In The Philosopher's Stone, he awards Neville Longbottom 10 points for standing up to his friends, tipping the house cup in Gryffindor's favour. That was not just about points, it was about teaching values. In The Chamber of Secrets, he mirrors that gesture, but in a much larger way. The parallel is deliberate, but in the film that moral thread is frayed. There is also a loss of emotional balance. The book's ending offers more than victory. It offers healing. Ginny, after all, was possessed by a dark force. She nearly died. Her parents are overwhelmed, her brothers shaken. The reward scene in Dumbledore's office provides a moment of catharsis. It gives the characters a moment to process what just happened. It slows down the pace and reminds us that these are children who just fought monsters, both literal and emotional. The film glosses over this trauma. Without that moment of recognition, the weight of their ordeal is diminished. Rowling's choice to have Dumbledore award them special recognition is also a narrative echo. She aligns the climax with a sense of historical justice. When Riddle received his award, it was based on a lie, the scapegoating of Hagrid. When Harry and Ron receive theirs, it is for revealing the truth, clearing Hagrid's name, and facing real danger. It is the author's way of healing old wounds, of tying the past and present together in a satisfying arc. The film, lacking this context, leaves that wound partially open. The injustice done to Hagrid is never fully addressed on screen. Another overlooked element is the subtle mentorship Dumbledore offers in that scene. He does not merely congratulate them. He reflects, he offers insight, he teaches. This is the Dumbledore who shapes Harry not just through magical lessons, but through moral ones. In the book, his presence is not passive. He sees into the heart of the matter and guides gently like a true mentor. The film, by comparison, reduces him to a warm figurehead, present, kind, but emotionally distant. Even the way the book handles the consequences of the events shows more respect for character development. Dumbledore does not punish them, but he makes them understand the weight of their choices. He speaks to them not like a principal, but like a wise elder. The dialogue, while brief, carries meaning. There is humour too. Dumbledore jokes about giving out awards for the best use of a library book when speaking of Hermione's help. But it is layered humour, balancing gravity and grace. In the film, this complexity is absent. Everything is wrapped in laughter and song. The erasure of this recognition scene in the movie also removes an important structural closure. Books use such moments to tie together the arc. The reward scene is not just an extra flourish, it is a payoff. It validates the risks taken, the mistakes made, the fears overcome. It also prepares the reader for the next chapter in Harry's growth. Dumbledore's praise is not only a reward, it is a compass, pointing Harry toward the kind of man he is becoming. What remains in the film is a celebration without depth. Viewers see smiles, hear music, and assume resolution. But resolution without reflection is hollow. Rowling understood that triumph needs to be tempered by meaning. Her Dumbledore is not simply a wizard of great power. He is a storyteller within the story, a weaver of connections, a steward of values. The omission of this side of him in the movie is a loss not just for Harry, but for the audience. By cutting the reward scene, the film robs Ron of a moment of growth as well. Ron, who often lives in the shadow of others, shines in this moment in the book. He is seen not as comic relief, but as a hero in his own right. Dumbledore praises him sincerely. This recognition matters. It shows Ron that he is not just a sidekick, but a key figure in this saga. In the film, his contributions are acknowledged through jokes and glances, hardly the same weight. In sum, the book's scene with Dumbledore's reward is not a trivial detail. It is a narrative climax rich with purpose, emotional, moral, and symbolic. It ties characters together, rewrites the errors of the past, and charts a path forward. It reminds the reader that in the world of Hogwarts, deeds matter, truth is honored, and guidance is given when it is most needed. The film, in choosing to end with cheers and cake, loses the opportunity to remind us of these truths, and that perhaps is its greatest missed spell. Number 24, Slytherin's Chamber Design. The difference between the depiction of the Chamber of Secrets in the book and its adaptation in the film is one of the most telling examples of how cinematic limitations can strip a place of its soul. J.K. Rowling crafted the chamber as a living, breathing relic of a cursed ideology, a space that bore the very essence of Salazar Slytherin himself. When Harry steps into it, the book does not merely describe a room, it unveils a sanctum hidden beneath the school's foundations, alive with ancient enchantments and brimming with ancestral pride, turned dark. The weight of centuries presses on him, and the oppressive air seems to whisper the legacy of Slytherin's disdain for Muggle-borns. This atmosphere, thick with unseen forces and slithering echoes of the past, is not just a backdrop. It is a character, powerful and dreadful. In Rowling's words, the chamber is a long, dimly lit chamber. Towering stone pillars entwined with more carved serpents rose to support a ceiling lost in darkness. This line alone creates a terrifying grandeur, a mixture of awe and menace that immediately sets the tone. The serpents carved into the stone are not mere decorations. They are reminders that this place belongs to a man who communed with snakes and believed in purity above all. The chamber breathes serpentine magic. Every stone, every pillar seems to vibrate with the language of Parseltongue, a tongue as ancient and secretive as the chamber itself. The reader feels Harry's unease not only because of the unknown danger, but because the very ground he stands upon is saturated with prejudice and power. In contrast, the film offers a streamlined visual. When Harry walks into the chamber on screen, we see a vast space with wet stone floors, towering columns, and of course the looming statue of Salazar Slytherin's head. But it is cold, too clean. There is no sense of the oppressive force pressing on Harry's chest, no suggestion that this room has waited for 1,000 years, pulsating with dormant magic. The serpent motifs are present but feel ornamental rather than sinister. The film succeeds in showcasing a dramatic space, yes, but it lacks the psychological weight that Rowling's words bestow upon the chamber. One of the most critical omissions is the sense of dread and living presence the room projects in the book. Rowling takes time to paint the chamber as a place that reacts to the intrusion of others. When Harry enters, the tension in the air increases. The reader is told how Harry felt as though he was being watched. The place was alive with an evil presence. That idea that the room is not merely a static location but an active force is completely absent in the film. The movie does not explore the chamber as a magical artifact. It presents it as a set piece for the final confrontation. The statue of Salazar Slytherin is another notable difference. In the film, it is a giant stone face carved into the wall, with the basilisk emerging from its mouth like a mechanical serpent from a hidden lair. Visually, it is striking. However, the book offers a more layered depiction. At the far end of the chamber stood a statue, high as the ceiling itself, of an ancient monkey-like man with a long, thin beard that fell almost to the bottom of his sweeping robes. This Slytherin is more grotesque, more human, and yet more alien. He is not a blank-eyed face carved into stone. He is a wizard whose very posture speaks of judgment and disdain. He is watching. And his mouth is not just an opening, it is the gateway for a monster, the final symbol of Slytherin's curse. In the book, the presence of the basilisk is foreshadowed by the room itself. The serpentine architecture, the cold stones, the lack of sound, all build to the moment of its emergence. There is suspense. Every step Harry takes echoes in the silence like a heartbeat in the dark. The reader feels that at any moment the chamber will respond, that the basilisk is not simply hidden, it is part of the room. Rowling writes that the serpent slithered out of the statue's mouth as if it had been coiled inside for 1,000 years, merging the monster with the architecture, making the threat visceral. In the film, the snake appears, but the connection between the creature and the chamber is weaker. It feels like a sudden threat rather than an inevitable one. The physicality of the chamber in the book is also worth noting. Harry must walk through a forest of stone pillars, their carved serpents watching from above. The detail here matters. The pillars are not just support structures, they are guardians. Their positioning, their expressions, their posture all give the feeling of an ancient audience observing the heir's return. Even Harry, not descended from Slytherin, feels the pressure of their gaze. He does not belong here. This is a room that recognizes bloodlines and punishes intruders. The film, in reducing these elements, loses this nuance. The pillars become decorations instead of sentinels. One moment in the book that highlights the magic of the room is when Harry hears the basilisk moving through the pipes. The sound is described as something vast sliding over stone. The walls almost seem to vibrate with the creature's presence. That sensation, the idea that the chamber's own infrastructure hides and channels the monster, is powerful. It turns the environment into a living maze where every surface is suspect, every shadow dangerous. In the film, this element is reduced to a single dramatic entrance. The horror of waiting, of listening, of feeling the serpent's breath in the dark is stripped away. Another powerful detail from the book is how Harry feels when he first steps into the chamber. The moment he stepped into the room, he felt the temperature drop. The cold is not just physical, it is spiritual. This is a place untouched by joy, warmth, or kindness. The chamber was built with hatred and sealed with dark intent. That coldness is not just sensory, it is symbolic. The film shows dampness but misses the emotional chill. It does not convey the cursed silence that surrounds Harry, the absence of time, the isolation that makes him feel like no help will ever come. Even the way Tom Riddle appears feels more meaningful in the book because of the chamber's atmosphere. His manifestation, slow and deliberate, is reflected in the silence of the room. The echoes of his voice bounce off the walls like the memory of old spells. The setting amplifies the ghostliness of the moment. The chamber is not just a location for a showdown, it is a theatre built for dark legacies to be played out. Riddle belongs here, and Harry does not. That contrast is palpable in the book. The film captures the visual duel but loses the underlying message of ancestral rivalry. The book also emphasizes how the room responds to magic. When Harry speaks Parseltongue, the chamber reacts. The walls vibrate, the statue awakens, the basilisk stirs. It is not Harry commanding a beast, it is him triggering a mechanism of hate built long ago. Rowling turns the act of speech into an act of unlocking trauma. In the film, this moment is present, but it feels more mechanical. The statue opens, and the snake appears, but the emotional impact is blunted. The room does not respond like a character, it is just a background. The reader feels that the chamber has been waiting, not just for the heir of Slytherin, but for this confrontation. The architecture, the silence, the carvings, all speak of prophecy. Every element reinforces the sense of destiny. The film moves quickly through this moment, racing to the action. It loses the gravity, the sense that history is repeating itself, that this is a test designed long before Harry was born. Most striking is the way Rowling connects the room to Salazar Slytherin's ideology, the prejudice, the obsession with blood purity, the disdain for outsiders. It's all carved into the very stones. The room is a monument to bigotry. When Harry enters, he is not just fighting a monster, he is standing inside a belief system designed to exclude him. That narrative depth is powerful and painful. The film flirts with this idea but never commits to it. It prioritizes spectacle over symbolism. The chamber in the book is haunting because it's not just where evil hides. It is where evil was built. Every element serves to remind the reader of Slytherin's dark legacy. The room is sacred to those who believe in purity and death to Muggleborns. Harry's presence defies the very foundation of the chamber. That act of defiance gives the moment weight. It is a victory not just of bravery over fear, but of love over hate, of inclusion over division. In the final moments of the book's scene, Harry does not simply win. He survives a place that wanted to reject him, that wanted him gone. The chamber does not collapse, but it is quieted. It is not defeated, it is silenced. That nuance is lost in the film's neat conclusion. Rowling's chamber lingers. It is not just a setting. It is a scar in the heart of Hogwarts, a hidden wound that reminds readers that darkness can be buried but never forgotten. Number 25. Gilderoy Lockhart's Amnesia. Gilderoy Lockhart's fall from grace is one of the most satisfyingly ironic threads woven through Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. But the film adaptation curiously truncates this downfall, leaving viewers without the full comedic and narrative impact that J.K. Rowling meticulously crafted in the book. When Lockhart's own memory charm backfires and obliterates his mind, the book does not merely present this as a moment of instant justice, it lingers on it. Rowling draws out the consequences, making them absurd, pathetic, and somehow poetic. In contrast, the movie offers only a brief glimpse of Lockhart's confusion in the tunnel, stripping away the depth of the character's unraveling and flattening one of the story's most delicious reversals. In the novel, once Lockhart's wand, borrowed from Ron, malfunctions and casts the memory-erasing spell directly on its caster, the character's change is immediate and dramatic. No longer the peacock-strutting fraud full of empty boasts and glamour, Lockhart becomes disoriented and childlike. "Hello," he says cheerfully to Harry and Ron. "Odd sort of place this, isn't it? Do you live here?" Rowling paints the image of a man who is not only mentally erased, but stripped of the mask he wore for years. It is a literary punishment that fits the crime. Lockhart, who built a career on stealing other people's memories, has now lost his own. The irony is sharp and cruelly satisfying. What follows in the book is a series of absurd and comical moments that reinforce the extent of Lockhart's transformation. As they venture deeper into the chamber, Lockhart marvels at his surroundings with childlike wonder, completely unaware of the danger and his previous arrogance. "Amazing! This is just like magic!" he exclaims, even as Harry and Ron struggle with the threat of the basilisk. It is this juxtaposition, the looming horror of the situation with Lockhart's giddy detachment, that gives the scenes their tragicomic tone. The reader cannot help but feel both disdain and pity. The mighty have fallen, but they've fallen into soft madness, not punishment. Rowling does not stop there. In the hospital wing after the events in the chamber, she shows Lockhart again, further exploring his mental state. He is seen scribbling with crayons and introducing himself to people he's already met. Madame Pomfrey remarks, "He seems to think he's here on holiday. I believe he's written a postcard to his fan club." This is the final nail in the coffin of Lockhart's legacy. Not only is he forgotten by the world, he forgets who he ever pretended to be. The arrogance that once defined him is replaced with the cheerful vacancy of a man unburdened by memory or ego. He is no longer even aware that he was once famous. By comparison, the film sacrifices nearly all of this for the sake of pacing. Once the spell backfires in the tunnel, Lockhart stumbles around dazed, confused, and utters a line or two in a daffy voice. He smiles awkwardly, clearly unaware of the situation, but then the story moves on. There is no hospital scene, no comical postcards, no additional development of his condition. The viewers are left with a moment of confusion and then silence. Lockhart disappears from the narrative without any real exploration of his new state, which weakens the punch of his downfall. It is as if his fate is a footnote rather than a narrative reward. The book treats Lockhart's collapse not just as a joke, but as a thematic resolution. Throughout the novel, Lockhart represents the dangers of celebrity, vanity, and deception. His entire career is a lie built on obliterating the memories of real heroes and taking their glory. That he should fall victim to the very spell he used to silence others is poetic justice. His memory loss is not merely a twist, it's a moral consequence. "You mean he tried to do a memory charm and the wand backfired on him?" asks a character later. "Yes," replies Ron, "and it couldn't have happened to a nicer person." That line doesn't just carry sarcasm, it encapsulates the story's commentary on fame without substance. It's important to understand that Lockhart's behavior post-spell is not just silly, it's symbolic. He no longer tries to manipulate, deceive, or shine. The man who once posed for book covers with fake monsters is now fascinated by toothpaste. His superficial persona has been peeled away, and all that remains is a blank slate. Rowling uses him as a mirror of what happens when image becomes more important than truth. The fact that he becomes harmless is both ironic and oddly touching. He is not punished through cruelty, but by losing the very thing he valued most, himself. This loss of identity is given more weight in the book because it allows readers to revisit Lockhart from a new angle. When Harry sees him again in the hospital wing, there is a moment of quiet reflection. Lockhart is not just comic relief anymore, he is a warning. In the wizarding world, where memory and truth are so intertwined with power, losing one's past is a kind of erasure worse than death. The film, by contrast, brushes past this nuance. The opportunity to explore the consequences of Lockhart's actions is lost in favour of moving on to the next plot beat. By failing to linger on Lockhart's fate, the film misses a moment of catharsis for the audience. Readers who endured his smugness and self-promotion feel vindicated when he is humbled so thoroughly. Watching Lockhart draw rainbows and forget his name is more than comedy, it is closure. Rowling gives readers the emotional payoff of seeing a liar undone not by an external force, but by his own hubris. He wielded magic irresponsibly and paid the ultimate price, the loss of his own narrative. Moreover, Lockhart's continued presence in the book adds texture to Hogwarts as a living institution. The school doesn't just eject characters when they're no longer useful to the plot. It contains them, changes them, reflects their transformations. Lockhart, in the hospital wing, is a reminder that magic, even misused, leaves behind consequences. He is a cautionary tale still wandering its corridors, too empty-headed to remember he was ever anything more. The movie reduces Hogwarts to a backdrop, a stage to exit once your lines are done. In Lockhart's final moments in the book, there is an absurd kind of grace. He's no longer aware of who he was, but he's happy. He signs autographs for no one, writes letters to people who don't exist, and believes he's still a beloved author. It's as if the universe has granted him a delusional peace. This doesn't excuse his past, but it does humanize him. The book allows readers to look at Lockhart and see not just a fraud, but a man so deeply invested in falsehood that the truth could only be erased by magic. The strength of Rowling's storytelling lies in this balance, making Lockhart's fate both funny and fitting, while also tinged with sadness. The film adaptation robs the story of this layered resolution. By cutting away the aftermath, it transforms a profound moment into a throwaway gag. The richness of Lockhart's descent into cheerful oblivion is sacrificed for brevity. As a result, viewers lose a deeper understanding of the character, and the story loses one of its sharpest ironies. Rowling's prose captures this irony best when she describes Lockhart's obliviousness not with cruelty, but with an almost whimsical detachment. He is a victim of his own lies, yes, but also a symptom of a society that rewards image over substance. The hospital scenes underline this truth. The once golden-haired hero, now unable to remember what a spell is no longer a threat. He is harmless, ineffective, and strangely content. And in that, the story gives him a peculiar kind of mercy. It is also important to remember that Lockhart's downfall is a mirror to other characters in the series who grapple with truth and identity. Like Snape or Dumbledore, who wear masks for deeper reasons, Lockhart's mask was all there was. The emptiness underneath is exposed not through moral reckoning, but magical accident. That is what makes it tragicomic. He never learns his lesson. He simply becomes too blank to remember he ever needed one. The book embraces this absurdity while the film quietly shuffles him off stage. In the end, the Lockhart we meet after the spell is not the villain we remember, but a shell, unaware, unaffected, and completely remade. He is no longer dangerous, not even pathetic. He is lost. And that loss, as Rowling presents it, is more devastating than any punishment the Ministry could deliver. The film misses the opportunity to explore this transformation fully, opting for a brief laugh instead of a lasting impression. But in the pages of the book, Gilderoy Lockhart remains a glittering reminder of what happens when truth is treated like a costume and magic like a mask. Number 26. Riddle's Bloodline Secret. Tom Marvolo, Riddle stood in the shadows of memory, a boy of striking intelligence, elegance, and terrifying ambition. His charm, his calm demeanor, and his cold precision masked a growing hunger within him. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, J.K., Rowling allows readers a profound glimpse into Riddle's teenage years, where he is revealed not merely as the future Lord Voldemort, but as a boy already playing God with the lives of others. The book weaves a far more unsettling image of Tom Riddle than the film adaptation, especially in regard to one crucial element that defines his entire worldview, his bloodline. In the pages of the book, when Harry confronts the memory of Riddle inside the chamber, the young dark wizard does not shy away from his ancestry. With a sense of triumphant pride, he tells Harry, "I'm not like you. I'm different. I'm special. I'm the last remaining descendant of Salazar Slytherin." It's a moment steeped in self-glorification. Yet, almost immediately after this revelation, Riddle admits something even more curious. He is a half-blood. His father, Tom Riddle Sr., was a Muggle. His mother, Merope Gaunt, descended from Salazar Slytherin. This contradiction between pride and shame defines the twisted psychology of the boy who would become Voldemort. The film glosses over this uncomfortable truth. It never mentions Riddle's mixed heritage, never forces the viewer to reconcile his hatred of Muggle-borns with his own origins. This omission changes everything. In the book, Tom Riddle is a study in contradiction, and this contradiction becomes the key to understanding his transformation. He despises Muggles not in spite of his heritage, but because of it. His hatred is not ideological, it is personal. Tom Riddle Sr. abandoned his mother before he was even born, and that rejection in Riddle's mind became an unforgivable curse. The Muggle blood in his veins was not just a stain, it was a wound, a reminder of humiliation. He wanted to erase it, conquer it, twist it into a source of dominance. That's why he sought to reopen the Chamber of Secrets and unleash the Basilisk upon Muggle-borns. It was revenge not just on them, but on what he was. By stripping Riddle of his half-blood identity in the film, the narrative becomes far less rich. It reduces him to a generic villain who hates without reason. The brilliance of Rowling's characterization lies in the contradiction between belief and biology. Riddle, a half-blood, proclaims pure blood supremacy. He is not merely hiding the truth, he is reinventing it. That makes him dangerous in a way the film does not capture. The boy in the book is building a myth around himself, a lie so powerful that it will shape the Death Eaters and the entire war to come. The film robs viewers of this glimpse into the origin of evil's most charismatic face. The importance of Riddle's bloodline is reinforced throughout the book. Dumbledore tells Harry, "You place too much importance, and you always have done, on the so-called purity of blood. You fail to recognize that it matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be." These words land with far more weight when the reader knows that Riddle, too, is a product of mixed blood. The irony is sharp, deliberate, and devastating. Tom's ideology is built on denial. He crafts an identity that erases his mother's suffering and his father's abandonment. He kills his father and grandparents not only to sever his ties, but to erase the proof that he was ever anything but pure. When Harry learns that Riddle is the heir of Slytherin and a half-blood, it changes how he sees himself. Harry, too, is a half-blood. He, too, can speak Parseltongue. The book uses this parallel to haunt Harry with the idea that he and Voldemort might not be so different. This thematic thread adds depth and internal conflict to Harry's journey. In contrast, the film avoids this uncomfortable mirroring. Without Riddle's bloodline confession, Harry's doubts feel less urgent. The psychological intensity of their connection is dulled. The stakes, though visually thrilling, are spiritually flatter. The film also misses the subtle class and power commentary embedded in Riddle's disdain for Muggle-borns. Tom grew up in a Muggle orphanage, surrounded by the ordinary. He hated it. He despised the smell of the place, the noise, the dullness. He saw magic as an escape, a means to ascend. But rather than appreciate the magic in everyone, Riddle fixated on lineage, seeing Muggle-borns as reminders of the world he wanted to bury. This is not pure ideology. It's emotional rot, resentment masquerading as doctrine. Rowling's prose makes this clear, especially in the way Riddle manipulates his peers, teachers, and even ghosts. His blood status is the fuel of his rage. The film sacrifices this complexity for brevity and spectacle. By omitting the truth of Riddle's blood, the film weakens the moral lesson of the story. Rowling is not just telling us about monsters, she's showing us how they are made. Riddle was not born evil, he was shaped by pain, rejection, and shame. He turned his trauma outward and weaponized it. The Chamber of Secrets is not just a literal room, it's a metaphor for buried truth, for the secrets we keep about ourselves. Riddle's secret is that he hates others because he hates a part of himself. The book lays this bare, the film leaves it untouched. There's also something important in the way Riddle delivers his revelation in the book. He is cold, calculated, almost smug. He wants Harry to know who he is, what he has done, but he also wants Harry to see that he has succeeded where others failed. He controlled the Basilisk, deceived the teachers, and framed Hagrid. His confidence is chilling when he says, "Voldemort is my past, present, and future." It's not just a riddle, it's a declaration of rebirth. Yet this rebirth is built on lies. Lies about his name, lies about his family, lies about blood. The irony deepens when one realizes that the boy obsessed with blood purity doesn't qualify under his own standards. In the film, Riddle is portrayed as smooth, mysterious, and cruel, but not necessarily conflicted. He appears elegant and collected, but the inner rot is missing. There is no sign of the deep self-loathing that drives his mission. The lack of emphasis on his half-blood status sterilizes him. He becomes an archetype, not a tragedy. In literature, villains who believe their own lies are more terrifying than those who simply cause harm. Riddle is a cautionary tale about identity, about the cost of hatred rooted in shame. The movie fails to deliver that message. This difference also matters because it alters how we view Slytherin House and the legacy of Hogwarts itself. Salazar. Slytherin's obsession with blood purity is presented as the root of the school's dark history. Riddle inherits this obsession not through teaching but through blood, and yet that very blood is flawed by his own standards. It's an endless spiral of contradiction, and it adds a layer of hypocrisy to the ideology that Voldemort would later enforce. The book captures this with haunting precision. The film, seeking clarity, instead erases the paradox. Even the Basilisk, a creature of death and silence, serves as a metaphor for this denial. Hidden in the pipes, unseen, it kills not with rage, but with gaze. Riddle never dirties his hands. He kills by proxy, using ancient magic to punish those who mirror his own origins. Every petrified muggle-born is a scapegoat. The book makes this act monstrous and pitiful at once. The film treats it as suspenseful entertainment. The moral gravity is lost. The sin is committed, but the sinner's motive is blurred. One cannot understand Voldemort's rise to power without understanding his past. The book invites readers to explore the roots of his cruelty, to see how pain can become poison when left to fester. The scene in the chamber is not just a confrontation, it's a revelation. Harry is not just fighting a memory, he's wrestling with the future. The weight of prophecy, legacy, and choice hangs between them. Riddle's blood is not just a fact, it is the key to the curse he unleashes on the wizarding world. Rowling crafted a villain whose evil was born of wounds rather than ideologies. The film turned him into a shadow, smooth and elegant, but emotionally hollow. And in doing so, it robbed viewers of the chance to face the more disturbing truth, that evil often begins with denial, with shame, and with the desperate desire to rewrite who we are. Tom Riddle didn't just seek power, he sought erasure of his father, of his past, of the part of him that reminded him he was ever vulnerable. The book shows us this in painful, precise detail. The film blinks and looks away,